RX Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag askDave, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Visit speciesnutrition.com. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi. This is your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. All your questions on diet, training, supplementation, IFBB pros, competition, whatever's on your mind is all on the table. Programming reminder right now on RxMuscle.com and the RxMuscle YouTube channel. Iron debate with Phil Hernon and Lee Priest yesterday talking about whether or not there should be drug testing in bodybuilding. Also, Dave just recorded an interview with Capucine Lacotte, and if you haven't heard of her, you're going to want to check this interview out. It's going to be coming soon to RxMuscle.com. Quick story. She was literally on her way to competing at a show, realized she forgot something at home, goes home, finds out her boyfriend is cheating on her, literally right there on the spot. I'm going to let Dave fill in the rest of the details. Apparently there was a physical altercation. She then proceeds to go to her show and wins. If that's not the definition of badass, I don't know what is. As we now bring in Dave Palumbo from the Cape Coral RX Muscle Studios, rocking his fresh Titan medical shirt.
Yeah, I got my favorite color on blue with the V-neck. So thanks, guys, at Titan Medical. And I know they got some great, for you guys asking me what's new at Titan Medical, they got healing peptides on the docket coming up next. TB500, BP157. So that's going to be super great because now we're going to know what we're going to buy is going to actually be really what they say it is, because sometimes you buy stuff and you don't know what it is. So you might want to check it out at titanmedicalcenter.com. Tell them RxMuscle, Dave Palumbo sent you, and they'll give you a great discount. So thanks to our friends over there. Now, yeah, Sid, the interview I did, which was unexpected, King Kamali had called me up a few weeks ago because I had interviewed the overall winner at the Figure Nationals. Now, you got to remember, Tyler and I got kicked out of the show by that asshole, Steve Carroll. So we were just hanging out in the front of the hotel, getting people as they walked out. We luckily got the overall winner. And King Kamali said, well, the girl I helped won the Class A, got her pro card. She only has done 2 shows. You got to interview her. So he sent me pictures of her, and I said, wow, she looks pretty good. So we got her on the show, and I was doing a little pre-interview with her, and all of a sudden she just happened to throw out there that, on the way to the Nationals, because she lives in South Beach, she was driving there, she forgot something, went home and caught the fiance of 4 years in bed with some fat girl. So needless to say, that might have screwed up everyone's day, but it didn't hers. And you'll hear the full story when the interview goes up later this week. So a lot of interesting stuff happening on the site, of course. This is the slow period for a lot of other sites. We seem to be amping up our coverage. I actually enjoy the December and January months because I don't have to cover competitions and I can kind of be more creative, having these Iron Debate shows and the Versus shows and all the stuff where we can kind of like talk about what's going on in the industry, what we can do to make it better, what we can get rid of to make it better, some contest promoters, and that's what makes the sport grow, by having these discussions, and that's something that we do great over here at RxMuscle.
So again, right now on RxMuscle.com, Iron Debate with Lee Priest. As we now get to your questions, we first go to Jacoby. It's either Alb or Albe. I know he's gotten on me about pronouncing his name. My apologies. I just got my blood test results, and my RBC red blood cell is normal, but my dosing isn't. What could cause normal red blood cell count on test and EQ? Thanks, appreciate it.
So he's worried that he's normal? I mean, he thinks he should be high? Assuming your
I guess so, yeah.
I mean, if your testosterone level is high on the blood work, then your testosterone is good. Not everyone gets high red blood cells. What anabolic steroids and testosterone can do is they stimulate the bone marrow to produce more red blood cells. Hematopoiesis, it's known as. It's the same thing that the natural hormone in the body and the synthetic hormone that we produce, EPO, does, erythropoietin. It stimulates bone marrow, but not all anabolic steroids in every person will have that same effect. Some people get, I used to take, not me personally, but I know someone who would take 100 milligrams of testosterone placed in a week and they would have super high hemoglobin hematocrit red blood cells. And you'd be like, well, how can that be? And then you have other guys that take 1,000 milligrams of testosterone a week and they have normal. So I wouldn't worry about the authenticity of your drugs because your red blood cell count didn't go up that high.
Let's go to Angel or Angel Perez Bonilla, 125. Why does D-ball kill my appetite, even if I'm only doing 25 mg a day? And what can I do to combat this? Should I stack the D-ball with MK677 or GHRP6 to keep my appetite high?
If an oral compound like Dianabol or Anadrol or any of these prohormones like Halodrol are causing you to have no appetite, there's a reason. Taking something to try to supersede that is silly. You don't have an appetite because it's toxifying your system, okay? It's making the liver toxic. The liver is having to work too hard. And when the liver is working hard, the last thing your body wants to do is consume a lot of protein, which is going to make the liver work even harder to have to like break down all this food. So when you get those symptoms of losing your appetite, that to me, at least in my brain, tells me get off the drugs. So whenever I would take orals in the past, and it wasn't a lot, and I would lose my appetite, as soon as I felt that appetite loss, I stopped them. Because that was a signal to my body that I wasn't doing well, that my body was becoming toxic and that it wasn't processing these drugs well. If you can't eat, you can't grow. So don't be silly.
GUI or GUI Campion, Dave, hate the show. With all this discussion about heart health, is Clenbuterol safe to take for someone with no heart problems?
Clenbuterol doesn't affect the heart. I probably said this 6 million times, but the reason is this is what happens, and I've explained this a lot of times too, but I'm going to do it again because I think it warrants, because I've been getting a lot of questions about this too in my emails. Clenbuterol is what's called a beta-2 agonist or stimulant. Agonist just means the same as stimulant. So it stimulates beta-2 receptors. Where do we have beta-2 receptors in our body? Well, on the bronchial tubes. That's why clenbuterol is a great asthma medication, because when you stimulate those beta-2 receptors, your bronchial tubes open up and you can breathe better, okay? Especially for people who have asthma. We also have beta-2 receptors on our blood vessel walls. So when we stimulate those, the blood vessel walls open up wider and it decreases blood pressure. The problem is if you take too much clenbuterol at one time, in other words, I always recommend people break it up into 20 microgram dosages. But some guys will just take 80, 100 micrograms in one shot. You do that, you drop your blood pressure so much so that the heart must beat faster to try to keep up blood pressure. Because if the pressure is not sustained through the system, you'll pass out. Your brain won't have enough blood. So what happens is you're indirectly stimulating the heart. So while clenbuterol has no direct stimulatory effects on the heart, you can indirectly do it by taking too much of a dose at one particular sitting. Break them up every 2 to 3 hours and you're fine. Now, if you took a drug like ephedra, which is what we call a generalized beta agonist, meaning that it stimulates the bronchial tubes, it stimulates the blood vessel walls, and it also stimulates the beta-1 receptors on the heart, then you can understand why your heart's beating faster. So clenbuterol is not going to give you arrhythmias. It's not going to be bad for your heart if you space out the dosings. If you have an underlying heart problem, I wouldn't take ephedra, however, because that directly stimulates the heart.
Let's go to Mike the Golden Oreo. Dave, over the last 6 months, I've moved all my rowing movements to chest-supported rowing. Examples, bent over rows replaced with chest-supported T-bar rows, landmine rows with chest-supported V-bar rows, so on and so forth. My back has absolutely exploded over the last 6 months. Is this exclusively from removing movement from my back I don't know if he's saying moment or momentum, rather. I think that's what he's trying to say. Removing momentum from my back movements, allowing me to get better hypertrophy.
I think what a lot of guys do is when they do these heavy free weight movements like bent rows, one-arm rows, they cheat a lot. They use a lot of, momentum. They like thrust their body back and they don't isolate the back muscles. When you have a pad or something against your chest and you're having to row, you really can't cheat because your chest is in a stable position. It can't move. So while I like supported movements like that because it is much more isolating, it's hard to do enough weight sometimes to put thickness on. So we usually do a little bit of each. The key is when you're doing your bent rows, if you're lifting too much weight and you're cheating, then you're not getting anything out of it. So you have to understand that form is very important. I never bent rowed 405 like I see some of these guys doing in the gym. But when I bent rowed 225 or 240 or 265, I used really good form. So I got a lot of benefit out of it. So once again, your body only knows what it feels. It doesn't know how much weight is on the bar. You could make lighter weight feel heavier if you're using the muscles correctly. And that's what training is all about. It's about using the right muscles, okay, for the given movement, for the given exercise you're trying to do.
Let's go to money and weight. Dave, in regards to gynecomastia surgery, you mentioned Dr. Blau as the best surgeon. I'm curious, what is the recovery time for this procedure and the typical cost?
The cost has gone up since I got it done in 1991, that's for sure. It's probably about anywhere from $7,000 to $8,000 now. It's like the price of a good boob job, you know. The bottom line, though, is the recovery is pretty quick. Assuming you don't have any complications, bleeding and stuff like that, you should be back in the gym in 2 to 3 weeks. Now, you're not going to be training chest in 2 weeks. What I did was when I had it done, and I had complications because we didn't know back then that fish oil and vitamin E causes you to bleed. So I had to be recauterized, I think, 2 or 3 times when I had mine done. But I still was back in the gym, I believe it was 17 days after I was training chest. So I went back, after 14 days I was back doing legs, you know, not heavy. Then I went to arms, shoulders, and then finally chest was the last body part I did. So probably it was at the 3-week mark or something like that. Close to the 3-week mark, I hit my chest again. And I was fine after that. Once it heals, after that first like 10 days, once you get the healing and the area they cut is no longer exposed, you're good. If you start doing too much in the first week, you will bleed, and then you'll have to go back and get recauterized. So that's not fun. So it's a relatively quick in recovery. It's nice to do after a show or in the off season when you're going to plan on taking a couple. You know, a lot of guys take 2-3 weeks off from the gym anyway. If you're smart, I never did that, but I always forcibly had to do it by getting some kind of surgery or something like that. But that's a good idea to try to do at the end of the season. Get it over with, get it taken out. You never have to worry about it again.
Jimmy McFit, Dave, I'm not interested in using exogenous insulin. Is there a way I can use glucose testing to determine if I'm consuming the right amount of carbs pre-workout? Example, test before and after working out to see if I go from high back to normal or even low. Is there any actions I can take based on those results?
The best thing you can do if you want to see how your blood sugar control is always, first of all, I've said this before, go to Walmart, get a tester. They're $9. $9 now. They're down to $9 and then $9 for the test strips. Test your blood sugar first thing in the morning when you get up, before eating. It's called fasting blood glucose. You should be under 90, okay? If that's good, that's a very good sign, okay? Then what you want to do is after your meals, 2 hours after, put a stopwatch on it, 2 hours after you eat your meal, test your blood sugar. It should be under 130. If it is, you're good. If those two values, the post-meal numbers, and do it on your biggest meals so that you know if your blood sugar is good. If you're under 130 on those meals and you're under 90, on the fasting blood glucose in the morning, your blood sugar control is fine. You don't need insulin. If you're running high, and what happens usually at first is not during the day, it's usually when you wake up in the morning, you're running high fastings. And I see this. A lot of guys send me their blood work, and I got them doing this. I got them out there getting the blood sugar monitors and testing, and they're running 100, 105. That's too high. And we got to get, for that, something's got to be done. Usually long-acting insulin is what the doctor orders, so to speak. So while I can't give you a definitive how to treat, high blood sugar, because everyone's a little different and I got to know what they're doing, if they're taking GH, if they're not, pretty much those two readings are the ones that you want to check out and see what they are. I wouldn't just knee-jerk take insulin if you don't need it.
Good one here from your good buddy Giovanni Del Biondo. Did you have any pre-gym rituals to get you hyped for working out? Me personally, I like to sit, listen to Tool, and drink black coffee while I mentally prepare myself for the task at hand. Your favorite client, Giovanni.
Giovanni, our 2017 teen national overall champion. And he's looking very big. He's in the 285 area. So He's going to be a great bodybuilder in the future. I'm convinced of that. Well, it's a good question. What did I do? On the most traumatic day that I had of the week would be leg day. I loved training legs, but at the same time I hated it because it was the most painful. And that's why a lot of guys don't have good legs, because they don't want to go through the pain. What I would do is I would think about what I was going to do all day long. I would think about which workout I'm going to do, if I was going to squat and then hack squat, think about how much weight I was going to do, how I was going to feel doing it. And it really ruined my whole day in a sense, because that's all I thought about. I couldn't wait to get it over with. And I wasn't one of these guys that can go early in the morning and train heavy. I needed to have a few meals in me, and and when you train that heavy also, you have to have training partners, because you got to spot each other. You can't just go there and ask some like 90-year-old guy in the gym to spot you. You wind up killing yourself. So I would think about this for a good portion of the day, and I wasn't one of these guys that listened to the crazy music. I didn't take tons of stimulants. I sometimes would take a little nap maybe before the gym. I was notorious for sleeping in my car in the parking lot before I would go into the gym. I would close my eyes. I might put music on then, just like easy listening music, recline the chair, the seat in the car, fall asleep for anywhere from 20 minutes to 40 minutes, get up. I would drink my pre-workout shake, and I'm not talking about a pre-workout. I would drink like a whey and carb drink. I'd go into the gym. I'd stretch for about 15 minutes before legs, and then I go and I knock it out of the ballpark. And I found that if I took a nap before I did it, I had great workouts. I just always made sure I was nice and warmed up before I got onto that bar.
DJ Diverse, your opinion on drinking egg white? So many advocate for it over whey, but there's constant debate over nutrient absorption, saying you only get roughly 50% of the protein when drinking drinking egg whites versus eating cooked. Your opinion?
I'm a big whey isolate fan, and that's why I produce a whey isolate protein. Egg whites, I was never an egg white fan, but I'll tell you what I did do back in the day. I drank whole eggs. I would actually buy a carton of omega-3 eggs, and I would actually crack, a lot of times, the whole carton, 12 of them, 12 whole eggs, blended up in a blender with a cup of oatmeal and maybe a little apple juice for taste, and I would gulp that down. That was notoriously some of my shakes, and I felt that the whole meal aspect of it was really good for growth. Now, I wouldn't do that right before I went to the gym, where I'd throw it up, obviously. I would replace a meal with that. So I would actually be eating, that would be my food meal, blended, And I think that with the egg yolks in there, because of the fat content, it made it easier to absorb it. I think when you just drink plain egg whites, I think it goes right through you. It's almost like it's too slippery. I don't know. Obviously, you're digesting it, but to me, I digest whey isolate better than egg whites, especially the ones in the carton. I think they're disgusting, to be honest with you. They just don't taste as good. I don't know. It tastes very watery for some reason. I like the consistency of a real egg that you crack out of an egg, as opposed to because I think what happens is that when they pasteurize it and everything like that, they strip away the mucus coat, that like slime coat from it, and it just loses some consistency in my mind, So if I'm gonna have to use a shake of something, I'm probably gonna drink a whey isolate shake. That to me, that's the gold standard.
Taylor Rainey 28, do you believe red meat is necessary in a bodybuilding diet? I don't tolerate it well.
I don't think anything is necessary. I don't think any one food is, and I don't think red meat is. If you don't like it, don't eat it. If it doesn't digest well, then don't have it. I always found that steaks really laid in my stomach a lot, but I could eat hamburgers, because they were ground up already. I don't know. You got to find what works for you. There are certain foods that certain people don't tolerate well. And if it's just laying in your gut, bothering your stomach, then obviously it's not going to help you recover from your workout and build muscle. You got to eat what your body processes well. And every one of us has certain foods that agree with us and disagree with us. And once you figure those out, that's going to make your body's ability to burn fat and or build muscle much easier, because you'll know the right foods that you need to incorporate.
askDave brought to you by Species Nutrition on RxMuscle.com. If it's the first time you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button below. You're not going to miss any of our shows, segments, or updates. As Dave mentioned earlier on the show, with the off season upon us, this is your home for original bodybuilding programming. Let's go to Josh Freeman. Dave, what supplements or vitamins do you recommend taking to help with shoulder pain, and at what dosages?
I've had my own little supplement cocktails I've used over the years because obviously I had really bad shoulders. Now I actually have one good shoulder, the one that was replaced, and I have one bad shoulder, the one that still needs to be replaced. But what I used to do is, and I still do to this day, I do 10 Arthrolyze per day. That's my Species Nutrition joint replacement product. It's basically 4 grams of glucosamine, 4 grams of MSM, boron, and chondroitin sulfate all in one formula, along with UC2 collagen, which is a patented, I'm not going to go into the science of it right now, I've done it before. It's a patented ingredient that helps your immune system attenuate and not attack your joint and connective tissue. So I do that. That's number 1 on the list. Number 2, and I haven't been doing it lately, but when I was competing, I was definitely doing it. I would buy unflavored gelatin packets, the collagen in there, because it's basically collagen protein, and I would put it into my protein shake. So on top of whatever whey isolate I would use, I'd put a packet of, once a day, whole packet of unflavored gelatin, and I would drink that and I would blend that up. It tastes neutral, okay? Because you're giving your body now the raw materials to help repair the cartilage and connective tissue in the joint. And you definitely want to get at least 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C into your daily intake. Those alone will going to really help out. And then on top of that, I would certainly make sure you're taking enough calcium, magnesium, because that's also, obviously calcium is important for bone strength. And obviously, when you have any kind of joint issues, there's bone involvement as well. So, without plugging my own products, I'm going to plug my own products. I would recommend taking V-Mineralize 5 pills twice a day as well. So if you took the V-Mineralize and the Arthrolyze together, along with the collagen, or the unflavored gelatin packet, I think you'd have your bases covered.
Couple of questions regarding your diet. One is about your competing days and about how in the 90s you were known for eating massive amounts of food, Big Mac diet, ordering steak meal for takeout, eating sushi on the way to get the steak meal. How many his question is, and again, it seems pretty rudimentary, as far as eating to grow, but his question specifically about bodybuilding's eating huge quantities of food. He wants to know if that's because of the Clen GH and thyroid that they use. So that's one part of it. The other question from Muscle Machine, your favorite post-workout carb meal?
Mm-hmm. When I competed, I had a fast metabolism before I started competing. You add 150 pounds of muscle to my body from what it was as a runner, and now I have a crazy, ridiculous, freaky metabolism. So I needed to feed myself, and I didn't like eating junk food. So while I ate some junk food, I didn't eat a lot. If you looked at the percentage of the junk food, considering how much food I was eating during the day, 12 times a day, I was, 6 shakes, 6 meals or something, or 7 shakes, 5 meals, something like that. I wasn't eating a very large percentage. So even though I ate McDonald's every single day, it was only 1 meal out of a ton of food I was eating all day. So it really was percentage-wise very low. I try to keep high-quality meals in there that were cleaner foods so that I could consume them. If you eat junky food all the time, you can't consume enough calories because you're just not hungry between meals. So that was an important point. Figuring out how I can get all the food I wanted in per day. I remember I would go literally, this is God honest truth, almost every night at like around 11:30 at night, because I used to stay up till 4 in the morning back in the day when I didn't have a job. We would go to this Seaford Palace Diner by my house on Long Island, and they were open till like 2 in the morning or something like that. And I would order the same thing every night. I would order a chopped sirloin steak, which was basically like a huge hamburger. It had to be like a pound of meat. Okay, but it was like it tastes like a hamburger, and I would get French fries, and at the time I would eat these big steak fries with usually some ketchup, and I'd have usually a big soup, a big bowl of chicken matzo ball chicken noodle soup, and I would eat that every night. This is midnight. I'd be eating this, and then I'd go home, and before I went to bed, usually at whatever it was, 3:30 in the morning, I would have a shake. So I was always thinking about what I was eating next, and they were, I had to be creative because it had to taste good to me. Sometimes that meal would get nauseating. I would be like, I can't eat this chopped sirloin anymore, and I would switch to something else. I'd have a piece of salmon or whatever was floating my boat at the time, turkey burgers. I don't know. I would change it up. The key is I was always thinking about what I was going to eat next, and I always had planned in my head what my next meal was and where I was going to get it. So if I knew what I had to do the next day, I would say, okay, I'm going to have to be here, I'm going to have to be here. Where am I going to be able to get all my food? I got to pack my shakes so I have enough shakes with me. You got to prepare. You got to prepare to succeed, or you're going to prepare to fail. That's really the God honest truth. Now, my favorite carb meal post-workout back then was, they didn't really have these high molecular weight carbohydrates. So what I used to use is Ultra Fuel. I'll give Steve Blegman a little plug. That was the Twin Lab, carb drink. And I would mix usually an Ultra Fuel with a Metrex shake or an Ultra Fuel. Back then they had Designer Whey. So I would usually use a packet of Metrex, which was the original Metrex, was a very high quality protein. And I would put like a scoop, which is like 25 grams of Designer Whey in there with an Ultra Fuel. And I blend that up. So it was like 60 grams or 65 grams of protein. There was probably 115 grams of carbs, and there was no fat, of course. Post-workout, I don't want to take any fat in. And that was literally my meal all the time, unless we were going out to eat someplace, and then I didn't worry about it. But that 99 times out of 100, that's what I ate right when I left the gym.
Sarush SRD, is there any way to fix thyroid levels when you have hyperthyroidism?
It depends what's causing it. If it's autoimmune, caused, then probably not. You're gonna have to go on replacement therapy. If it was caused by you taking thyroid drugs that maybe it's suppressed, a lot of times you got to give it time. If you have a sluggish thyroid, here's the two issues that could help. Number one, you might be iodine deficient. Are you eating iodized salt? If not, you should be taking a supplement like kelp to give your body the raw material, the iodine, which is a precursor to all the thyroid hormone in your body. V Mineralize has a lot of kelp in there, so if you're taking that supplement, you're probably covered in that base. The other thing is sometimes we have a sluggish, the conversion of thyroid hormone. In other words, there's two thyroid hormones. There's T4, the inactive thyroid, T3, the active. If T4 is not converting to T3 optimally, then you're going to have a sluggish thyroid, even though you might have enough thyroid hormone in your body. You're just not going to have enough of the active thyroid, in which case you could take something called glucosterones. Glucosterones are an Indian Ayurvedic medicine that they used to use, or herb, and it just helps that conversion of T4 to T3. I actually have that ingredient in my lipolyzed fat burner. So, because I know as we diet, that tends to slow down. It's a good idea to supplement that when you're on a diet. So those are two things that you can use to help you out.
Interesting one here from Animal Viper. Dave, would you say bodybuilding of today, as we know it, is not the same kind of, it reminds you of the WWE, where it was so great back when it was a WWF Attitude Era, and back when Ronnie and Jay and others were competing, that it was like the Attitude Era of bodybuilding. Now it's not so great like the WWE. People are just not interested in watching anymore like they used to. People are burned out with the Phil Heath winning every show and only one or two guys kind of push Phil. But back in Ronnie's day, you had 4 or 5 people 100% at their best pushing the champion. Even if they lost, they still looked amazing. And you could see they were really proud of what they brought to the table. Your thoughts?
My thoughts are is the industry has changed. I think that if you ask a lot of guys who are online and theoretically, quote, bodybuilding fans, that go to the bodybuilding sites and watch the bodybuilding videos and YouTube channels, I don't think a lot of them even know anything about the Olympia. I think they like the whole muscle sport is what they like. And because of the internet now, being muscular and having big arms and all the drugs that go along with it, it's almost like a subculture of its own. These people, they are into the culture, but they don't know anything about the history of the sport or what's going on in the sport. They don't have an interest in that. They only have an interest in who looks good on Instagram or on Facebook. And there's nothing wrong with that. So it's like there's like the Mr. Olympia of Instagram, the Mr. Olympia of Facebook. That's more important to these guys than the actual real Mr. Olympias, because they just want to look good. Who's got the best abs? Who's got the most likes? Who's got the most followers on Instagram? And those are the people that a lot of these guys online and girls look up to. And so, there's a different set of stars. It's like there's like the conventional Mr. Olympia, and then there's the online Mr. Olympia. And I think the online Mr. Olympia, which is certainly not Phil Heath, is way different than the one on stage. So I think the energy and excitement is still in bodybuilding, and if you go to the Mr. Olympia in Vegas, it's still there for the hardcore fans. But I think most of the fans nowadays are fans of the online Mr. Olympias and Miss Olympias, and that's really what it amounts to. But there's a lot more people following bodybuilding than there was in the past, so that's also a good thing. So I don't think we lost anyone. I think we gained another aspect, a subsection of our subculture, and that's really what it amounted to.
We have a lot of good questions, and I just got the 26-minute notification from our producer, Tyler, but we're going to try to squeeze these in. You're doing a great job As always, the RX Muscle community steps up and asks really educated questions in regard to bodybuilding, the lifestyle, and the practice. Let's go to one tall man. Dave, I have a question. I've been recently diagnosed with prediabetes a few weeks ago. My number is at the beginning stage of the prediabetes, 5.7. My doctor told me to watch my carbs and come back in a month or so so she could retest my blood sugar level. Is it okay to have carbs before workout and after workout? I drink a protein shake with 35 grams of Vitargo. Then 40 to 60 minutes later, I'll have my carb/protein meal. Your view on prediabetes and post-workout carbs to spike insulin?
Goes back to what we were saying earlier in the show. You know, hemoglobin A1C is a measure of how much of your hemoglobin in your blood has basically combined with the glucose in your blood. If your glucose is high, you're going to have more of this this binding of it together, to basically make it simplistic. And they can measure that. So if your hemoglobin A1C level is over 5.4, they say you're borderline, type 2 diabetic. He's obviously a little over I think it's actually up to 5.6. So he's just a little over. What that means is that at certain points of the day, he's running high blood sugars. Like I said, even having high blood sugars a little high, over the long run, can cause a lot of problems with accumulation in the brain, possibly causing dementia, in the extremities, causing numbness in your fingers and poor circulation, in the eyes, causing vision problems, in the kidney tubules, causing obviously kidney function issues. So we don't want to let that get out of hand. And the best way to determine, everyone always says hemoglobin A1C, hemoglobin. I don't believe that, because hemoglobin A1C is just an average over a course of 3 months what your blood sugars are running. If you want to see what they're running, go get that blood sugar monitor for $9 at Walmart. Test your blood sugars first thing in the morning before eating and 2 hours after your meals. If those are running high, like I mentioned earlier in the show, then we got an issue that we have to figure out how we want to deal with it. So that's a better way to do it. Now, is taking a post-workout shake with fast absorbing carbs, which is going to increase insulin demand, a good idea? Probably not a bad idea, only because post-workout, your body produces what's called GLUT4 receptors, which are receptors that allow you to absorb glucose without the need for insulin. So you're probably your body's ability to absorb glucose and carbs is the best right after you train. Earlier in the day, not so much so. So I would try to eat more complex carbs that take longer to digest, so you're not getting insulin spikes, or at least you're not putting a demand on your body for insulin spikes. That seems to work better in people that have a tendency to not being able to produce enough insulin. Also, keep your carbohydrate loads lower. So in other words, rather than eating 100, 200 grams of carbs in one meal, try to space it over 5 or 6 meals throughout the day. That's going to give you much better blood sugar control as well.
King Aesthetics 123, do you believe that in bodybuilding, a psychological mindset is important? I noticed even if I was eating, training, and using the same supplements, if my mental state wasn't where it needed to be, my gains suffered. Other times, when my mind was set and all I did was think about my goal, my progress skyrocketed with no change to my diet or training.
Well, they always say, the old Zen saying, where your mind goes, your body follows, and that's the truth. So if you're not focused on what you want, you're not going to get it. I always notice if I was in the gym and I wasn't mentally astute and I wasn't really focusing, and this was more the case when I would be squatting heavy weight or deadlifting heavy weight, I always either got hurt or I got off balance. You got to stay focused on what you're doing, and if you're not laser focused for that day, for whatever reason, you're tired, okay, or you're just not in the game, then don't push your body to the max on that day. Even if you were planning to do a heavy leg day, you go into the gym and you just can't get focused, just do a lighter workout that day, because there's no reason to get injured and then set yourself back 6, 8, 10, or maybe more weeks. It's not worth it. So yeah, your brain, how your brain is thinking is definitely going to influence how your body performs.
Miguelito Hudson, Dave, my pre-workout meal consists of salmon, rice, and a tablespoon of macadamia nut oil. I just started using a GDA with my pre-workout meal. Would the fats in my meal interfere with how well the GDA works?
GDA being a glucose disposal agent, in other words, helping your body absorb the carbohydrates. I'm not really a big fan of those. I don't think they really work or do very much of anything, to be honest with you. At least the natural ones don't, unless you're deficient in something. Like if you were deficient in chromium, which is necessary for insulin to work, and you took chromium, you're going to notice that your blood sugar control is better. But most people are not deficient in these necessary or I should say assistant nutrients. So, but to answer your question, obviously fats will delay the absorption of all the foods you're eating, including the glucose disposal agents. So you won't really need as much insulin anyway because the carbs will trickle much more slowly into the bloodstream. So in essence, fat intake with carbs acts like its own glucose disposal agent because it slows down the absorption of glucose into the bloodstream, which makes the insulin requirements much lower, which makes it easier to absorb these carbohydrates.
One more question. This one is a bit of a doozy. So here, let's lock in. Rob Nerland Fit. Dave, I have a suggestion that will require your skills and connections to make happen. Boston Lloyd, Matt Porter, Coach Trevor from Enhanced Athlete. Get the three of them to all agree to do the same competition next year. The hype will be awesome. You can provide coverage and updates as they get ready for the show. Everyone will get publicity, which helps boost everyone's product line, client base, and social media following. I guarantee the RX community and bodybuilding community would love to see it. Lastly, who do you think out of those three, again, Boston Lloyd, Matt Porter, and Coach Trevor, would win?
It's a good question. I don't know. Who would win? That's the question I'm not really sure. I don't want to. I'm friends with pretty much all of them, so I'm not going to say either one. Anyway, I think all of them have the ability to win. It would depend on who did the less crazy stuff. Probably would be the champion, I'm sure. The last arranged pose down I did at a show was Billy Guns versus Vince Goodrum at the Arnold Classic. I can't even remember what year. It must have been 2009 or 10. And Billy Guns emerged victorious. I hung up my promoter's cap after that. It was too stressful because before the pose down at the ALR booth, at Arthur L. Ray's booth, Derek Anthony, may he rest in peace, he's no longer with us, almost had a massive brawl with Vince Goodrum. It was a scene to behold. But yet Vince Goodrum held it all together and got on stage and still posed down against Billy Guns and lost. So it was all in fun. I think I'm going to hand off the hat to someone else to promote it. Unless all three of them agreed to come into my studio and we set up a little makeshift stage here. Tyler could set up like he can get his drone in here and to film from the ceiling or something like that, and we could do a pose that. If he agreed to do it in my studio, I'd promote it.
Either studio or at the upcoming Arnold Classic.
There you go. I'll do that too.
That is going to do it for this episode of Ask Dave. Again, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Visit speciesnutrition.com. Again, Iron Debate with Lee Priest right now on RxMuscle.com and the RxMuscle YouTube channel. For Dave Palumbo and our producer Tyler Shore, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.